The Galactic Empire had existed for eons, its influence stretching across countless star systems and civilizations. The Empire was a force of immeasurable power, its fleet vast and unchallenged, its warriors fierce, and their technology far beyond the reach of lesser species. But even they could not predict the ripple of fate that would bring their gaze upon a small and insignificant planet at the far edge of the galaxy. Earth to the Empire, it was nothing more than an anomaly, a speck on the map. But that tiny world held secrets the Empire would soon learn to regret underestimating. The Empire had conquered thousands of worlds. Its ships were like shadows blotting out the light of entire suns, their armies an unstoppable tide of destruction. But this time the target was different. Earth had gone unnoticed for so long, hidden beneath the veil of its own ignorance and isolation. The planet had been locked in its own developmental struggles, barely aware of the wonders of the stars above its people, unaware that they were on the cusp of something far greater than they could comprehend. But the Empire's advanced detection systems had picked up an anomaly, a strange series of cosmic signals originating from Earth. They were faint and fleeting, but unmistakable enough to spark curiosity in the minds of the Empire's leaders. The Galactic Empire had never encountered a species so unrefined, so primitive, yet capable of such strange and intriguing energy patterns. The signals were unlike anything they had observed before, and for a moment it was enough to intrigue the Empire's scientists and strategists. They hypothesized that Earth might contain some hidden resource valuable enough to justify their attention, a resource they had not yet discovered on any other planet, and so the decision was made. An invasion fleet was assembled, a gargantuan armada that would make short work of the primitive Earthlings who could never hope to defend themselves against such overwhelming power and force. The Empire did not waste time. Their ships descended into space, moving toward Earth with silent grace, their arrival unnoticed. As they entered the orbit of the planet, their ships a glittering constellation in the void waiting to strike. Back on Earth, there was no indication of the approaching storm. People went about their daily lives, unaware of the fate closing in on them. Scientists and world leaders continued their work, oblivious to the shadows gathering above their skies. The Empire's intelligence reports described Earth as a place of confusion and disorder, a world full of conflict and chaos, but lacking the technology or the unity to ever challenge a force like the Galactic Empire. Earth's people were divided by borders and ideology, their technology primitive, their weapons obsolete in comparison to the Empire's formidable arsenal. But what the Empire did not know was that their assumptions were based on a fundamental misunderstanding of humanity. It was true that Earth was divided, but humanity had something that no other species in the galaxy could predict, a spark of potential that had long been dormant deep within their DNA, a fire that had yet to be kindled, an untapped well of possibilities far beyond what anyone could imagine. And so as the Empire's fleet moved closer toward Earth, the universe prepared to witness the rise of a force that would soon challenge the very notion of what it meant to be an advanced civilization. The time for underestimating humanity was over. The game was about to change, and no one was prepared for the storm humanity was about to unleash. The moment Earth's skies were brushed by the shadow of the Empire's ships, something changed on the planet. Something no one could have predicted. A ripple of energy coursed through the atmosphere, igniting a transformation deep within the very fabric of humanity. People began to feel it in the air, the strange tingling sensation, the pull in their minds, as if something long dormant was stirring inside them. At first, it was subtle, a flicker of heightened senses, a momentary flash of understanding that felt beyond the ordinary. But as the days passed, the change grew more pronounced. The shift was not something that could be ignored. At first, the effects were isolated, scattered across the globe. Humans in different parts of the world experienced the phenomenon in their own ways. Some discovered they could move faster than they had ever imagined. Others began seeing patterns in data that had once been incomprehensible. Their intellect sharpened like a blade honed to perfection. Entire groups of scientists discovered they could calculate complex equations in mere moments. While athletes broke records with ease, people could push the limits of their bodies far beyond their previous capabilities. There were whispers across the globe as the first reports emerged, strange occurrences of unexplainable strength, unanticipated bursts of speed, and remarkable feats of intelligence, as if some dormant genetic trait had been awakened in the human race. It was only a matter of time before the world's governments took notice. And at first, they feared the worst. Would this be the work of an alien invasion, some secret weapon or experiment gone wrong? But there were no answers, only questions. Meanwhile, a small group of expert scientists from every corner of the Earth gathered, trying to comprehend what was happening. They studied the phenomenon closely, and eventually they began to draw the same conclusion. The events unfolding were not random. These changes were part of something much bigger than they had imagined, a transformation that was biological, not artificial. Something deep in the core of humanity's DNA was awakening a latent potential that had never been tapped before. As the transformation spread, so did the questions. People tried to make sense of the changes. Some feared it was the result of a dangerous, unknown force. Others believed it was a sign of evolution gone awry. But the truth was that humans had always held the potential for greatness. They had just been held back by their own limitations, by their lack of understanding of the universe around them. And now that barrier was shattering with every passing day. Around the world, the phenomenon continued to spread faster than anyone had anticipated. Humans were beginning to realize they were no longer bound by the rules they had once known. The mind began to work in ways that defied the laws of physics and biology. The human body began to bend the limits of endurance, breaking boundaries of what was thought to be possible. And the most astonishing part of all was that no one could pinpoint exactly what was causing it. There was no central event, no sudden catalyst that triggered this awakening. It was as if the very essence of humanity had been unlocked by some cosmic force that the Empire had failed to notice. The world's governments tried to control the flow of information, but it was already too late. The changes were too widespread and too powerful to hide. As ordinary citizens began to display extraordinary abilities, military forces were put on high alert, but even they could not keep up with the surge of change sweeping across the planet. And just as humanity was beginning to realize that they were no longer powerless, the first ships from the Galactic Empire arrived in orbit above Earth, their towering warships gleaming with ominous power. But what they didn't know was that Earth was no longer the helpless world they had believed it to be. They had awakened a force unlike anything the Empire had ever encountered. The first signs of the Galactic Empire's arrival were subtle. At first, a shift in the night sky, a sudden silence across the world, as people gazed upward, wondering if the stars had changed their positions. But soon it became undeniable. The Empire's fleet was descending toward Earth, its colossal ships looming in the heavens like harbingers of doom. They arrived in waves, massive warships that blocked out the stars. As they entered Earth's orbit, their presence was overwhelming, their technology far beyond anything humanity had ever dreamed of. The ships shimmered with an otherworldly glow as they settled into place high above the planet. On Earth, the government scrambled to respond. The sudden appearance of the invaders sent shockwaves through every nation. Military leaders raced to formulate a defense, but even the most advanced human weapons were no match for the Empire's might. Earth had no experience with such overwhelming force. It was as if a swarm of giants had appeared on their doorstep, and humanity was still reeling from the sudden awakening of their new powers. Some felt fear, some felt wonder, but all of them knew one thing for certain: they were facing a threat unlike any they had ever imagined. But the Empire was not prepared for what came next. They had assumed that the humans would cower in fear, that they would fall before their superior force, like so many other civilizations before them. But what they did not account for was the spark of change within humanity, a spark that had only just begun to burn bright. The first contact was supposed to be peaceful. The Empire sent its ambassadors, a delegation of high-ranking officials, to make their presence known, to establish dominion over the world, and to negotiate terms of surrender. But the humans had other plans. As the ambassadors arrived on Earth's surface, they were met by an unexpected force, a gathering of ordinary people who had undergone the extraordinary transformation. The humans who had felt the changes within themselves, the newfound powers that surged through their veins. They did not hesitate, they did not retreat. They gathered together as one, their minds sharp and focused, their bodies more than capable of confronting the invaders. They approached the Empire's diplomats not with fear, but with defiance. As the ambassadors stepped down from their ships, their eyes widened in shock at the sight of the humans standing before them. No longer were they meek or frightened. They were bold, their confidence and strength evident in their every move. The humans had an energy about them, something that unsettled the Empire. They exuded a power that was not supposed to exist in a species like theirs. But the humans were not deterred. They stood tall and unyielding, as if they had always known they had the ability to rise against any force. The diplomats attempted to speak to the humans to offer their terms, but the words fell on deaf ears, as the humans responded not with words, but with action. One by one they displayed their new abilities, moving faster than any of the Empire's diplomats could comprehend, their bodies glowing with energy, and their minds racing with knowledge they had not known existed. Just days before, the Empire's ambassadors were stunned as the humans began to demonstrate feats of strength and intelligence that should have been impossible to them. And just as quickly as the ambassadors had arrived, their mission was disrupted. The first contact had spiraled into confusion and fear as the humans began to challenge the very notion that they were weak, that they were powerless, that they would bow to the Empire. The invasion had not gone according to plan, and the Galactic Empire realized too late that they were facing something much more dangerous than they had ever anticipated, something they had never been prepared for, a species that had only just begun to tap into the boundless potential hidden within them. The disruption caused by the first contact spread like wildfire across Earth. Governments scrambled to regain control of the situation. The arrival of the Empire's ambassadors had left the world stunned, and confused humanity had faced a force far beyond its capabilities. Yet the humans who had recently awakened their newfound powers had not bowed or fled. They had stood tall and refused to be intimidated by the alien presence that loomed above them. This moment would mark the beginning of a new era for Earth. As the realization spread across the planet that humanity was no longer powerless, a global response began to take shape. In cities around the world, people began to gather, united by the same cause, the desire to protect their home from a threat they could not fully comprehend. Yet one thing was certain: the Empire was no longer dealing with a fragile species. They were dealing with a species that had the capacity for untold power, a species capable of evolving faster than any had ever imagined, and it was time for humanity to act as one. Across borders and oceans, differences that once divided the nations of Earth began to dissolve as leaders realized they had no choice but to unite or risk losing everything. The United Nations became the foundation for a new global coalition, one that transcended the old divisions of politics and ideology, as military and civilian leaders from every corner of the globe convened to form a single unified force. They set aside their past conflicts and came together under a single banner to defend the future of humanity. A new spirit of cooperation emerged. Scientists, engineers, and strategists from all nations shared their discoveries and expertise. In a flurry of activity, humanity's awakened abilities had unlocked new possibilities and ideas. The speed of innovation grew at an unprecedented rate as people worked tirelessly to understand and harness their newfound potential. Technologies that once seemed impossible became realities as the United Earth Coalition pooled its resources to develop weapons, ships, and defenses that would allow humanity to stand against the Empire. Humanity's greatest weapon, however, was not just in the weapons they created or the ships they built. It was in their collective will, the determination of a species that had faced extinction countless times in their history and always emerged stronger and more resilient. This was the power that had once been dormant deep inside their genetics, and now it surged forth with a purpose greater than any individual goal. The people of Earth were no longer bound by their differences. They were bound by a shared resolve to protect their world and ensure that their children's future would not be dictated by alien conquerors. The United Earth Coalition set to work preparing for the inevitable clash with the Empire. Their fleets began to assemble. Humanity had no illusions about the scale of the threat they faced. They knew the Empire's power was vast and that their odds of victory were slim, but they also knew they had something that the Empire did not have, the one thing that could tip the scales in their favor: the unbreakable spirit of humanity. As the coalition moved forward, they began to coordinate with their most powerful minds to develop strategies that would allow them to stand a chance against the Empire's overwhelming forces. Earth's forces were still relatively small compared to the galactic fleet that waited in orbit, but their unity and creativity became their greatest strength. Their ships were being outfitted with technology that combined human ingenuity and the strange energy humanity had unlocked in the Awakening, and soon Earth would show the Empire just how formidable they had become. The United Earth Coalition was not just a military alliance, it was the manifestation of humanity's survival instinct, a beacon of hope that no matter the odds, no matter the size of the enemy, Earth would never go down without a fight. And as the ships of the coalition prepared for launch, humanity's collective voice rang out with a single message to the invaders: you have underestimated us, and you will regret it. As the United Earth Coalition forged ahead with its preparations, the hum of industry filled the air. From bustling military command centers to secretive research labs, humanity worked around the clock to assemble a fleet that could stand against the Empire's might. It was an impossible task, but the humans knew that there was no turning back. The realization had settled over them like a weight. Earth's survival rested on their shoulders, and they would rise to meet the challenge. The first ships to emerge from humanity's shipyards were a blend of innovation and urgency, designed with the strengths of the newly awakened human abilities in mind. The ships were fast, agile, and adaptable. Unlike the massive lumbering vessels of the Empire, the human ships could change course, quickly evading the predictability that the Empire had come to rely on. Their design was inspired by the very nature of their creators. The ships were a reflection of human ingenuity and resilience. They were not perfect, but they were a testament to humanity's ability to adapt and innovate under pressure. As the first fleet took shape, it became clear that the humans had done something unexpected. They had not only learned to reverse engineer the alien technology they had encountered, but they had integrated their own newfound abilities into the ships themselves. The energy that surged through the humans now coursed through their vessels, as well enabling them to move with a speed and grace that no one had anticipated. The ships hummed with raw power. Their weapon systems were unlike anything seen before, and their designs incorporated human strength in ways that made the ships more unpredictable and dangerous to the Empire. But the true power of humanity's fleet did not lie in their ships alone. It was in the people who piloted them. The newly awakened humans were not just soldiers, they were more than that. They were engineers, warriors, scientists, and strategists, all rolled into one. Their minds were sharp, and their bodies capable of feats that would have been unimaginable just weeks before. The human pilots could think and react faster than any other species in the galaxy. They had become a force that was not bound by the limitations of technology alone, but by the very essence of what it meant to be human. On Earth's surface, preparations were also underway. As the coalition worked to build up its defenses across the globe, cities were fortified, and underground bunkers were expanded to accommodate the growing population of soldiers and civilians who stood ready to fight if the invasion came to their doorsteps. But while the world prepared for war, the real battle was taking place in space, where the first wave of the Earth fleet was now ready to launch. Humanity's first strike against the Empire came swiftly as the fleet rose from Earth's atmosphere and entered the void of space. Their ships gathered in formation, a mixture of fighter craft and larger vessels built for both offense and defense. As they passed through the final layers of the planet's atmosphere, the human fleet opened fire on the Empire's scouting ships. The battle was brief, but fierce. The humans fought with a level of determination and coordination that surprised the Empire's scouts, who had expected an easy victory. But the humans fought with every ounce of strength they had learned to unlock, and it was enough to send the Empire's forces scrambling to adjust. The Empire's scouts were taken aback. They had expected to crush humanity without resistance, but now they were forced to retreat to report back to their superiors. The humans had struck first and shown the galaxy that they would not be an easy conquest. They were no longer the defenseless species the Empire had assumed them to be. They had awakened a power far beyond the Empire's understanding, and with each passing moment, the stakes grew higher as the humans prepared for what was to come. The battle in space was just the beginning as the United Earth Coalition looked to the stars and prepared to take the fight to the empire. Humanity had made its mark on the galaxy, and the message was clear. They were no longer a world to be ignored or underestimated. Earth was ready for war, and the empire would soon learn that the price of conquest was far higher than they had ever imagined. The empire had underestimated Earth. The first wave of scouts had returned in disarray, their reports filled with confusion and unease. The humans had fought back with an intensity and ingenuity that left the empire's commanders rattled. Their ships had been swift and unpredictable, their tactics strange yet effective. The empire had expected an easy victory and instead had encountered resistance unlike anything they had ever faced before. The reports sent shockwaves through the imperial command centers as their leaders began to realize the magnitude of their miscalculation. In response, the empire launched its first full-scale assault on Earth. Their warships descended upon the planet in waves massive and unrelenting. They filled the skies like an endless storm. The sheer scale of the invasion force was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Their ships blotted out the sun, their weapons capable of erasing entire cities with a single strike. The Empire's strategy was simple: overwhelm Earth's defenses with sheer force and force humanity into submission. But the United Earth Coalition was ready. They had prepared for this moment. Their fleet was already in position, waiting for the first wave of the Empire's attack to come. And when it did, the battle that ensued was like nothing the galaxy had ever witnessed. The human ships met the Empire's forces in space with a fury that surprised the invaders. The humans fought not just with advanced technology, but with something far more dangerous: the strength of their collective will. They fought with the knowledge that their survival was on the line, and that they would not be cowed by the might of an alien empire. The Empire's warships were vast and powerful, but the human fleet was fast and agile. Their ships darted around the Empire's massive vessels with speed and precision, striking from unexpected angles and retreating before the Empire's forces could respond. The humans used the element of surprise and their newfound abilities to outmaneuver the invaders at every turn. Their ships were equipped with weapons that fired with pinpoint accuracy, and the humans fought with a coordination that made it clear they were not a disorganized mass of soldiers, but a unified force determined to protect their home. The battle raged for hours in the cold emptiness of space as humanity's fleet clashed with the Empire's invaders. But despite their superior numbers and firepower, the Empire's forces were struggling. The humans had turned the tide in ways that the invaders could not have predicted. Their ships were not just vessels of war, they were a reflection of the humans themselves, adaptable, resilient, and relentless in their pursuit of survival. The Empire's commanders soon realized that their initial plan had failed. Humanity was not the weak and primitive species they had thought them to be. On the ground, Earth's military forces engaged in their own battle. The Empire's assault had already begun to ravage cities across the globe. The first strikes had taken out key infrastructure, but humanity was not without its defenses. They had been building underground bunkers and fortifications in anticipation of the invasion. And as the first waves of Empire troops landed on the surface, they were met with stiff resistance. Human soldiers fought back with tactics that combined conventional warfare and the newfound powers that the human race had discovered in the past weeks. They were no longer just soldiers, they were a force of nature. The Empire's initial confidence was beginning to waver. Their assault was faltering, and they were beginning to see just how costly their invasion of Earth was becoming. The humans had given them far more resistance than they had ever expected, and each victory the humans achieved chipped away at the Empire's resolve. With every passing minute, Earth's defenders proved that they would not bow down, they would not be crushed under the boot of the Empire. They had awakened something far greater than anyone could have imagined, and the first full-scale assault on Earth had proven one undeniable fact: the Empire had underestimated humanity, and the cost of that mistake would soon become painfully clear. As the battle raged on Earth's surface, and in the vast expanse of space, the Galactic Empire began to realize the extent of their mistake. The initial shock of humanity's resistance had now turned into something more dangerous. The Empire's forces were beginning to struggle in ways they had not anticipated. The human fighters were no longer just reacting to their attacks. They were adapting, evolving their tactics. With each encounter, the humans were learning at an alarming rate, pushing the Empire to the brink of exhaustion. Their fleets clashed in the heavens, while on the ground human soldiers fought tooth and nail to reclaim their cities. Humanity's unity had become their greatest strength, and the Empire was beginning to crack under the pressure. One of the most unexpected elements of the human resistance was their ability to adapt not just to new technology, but to each other. The newly awakened humans, with their enhanced abilities, began to coordinate their actions in ways that allowed them to counter the Empire's most advanced tactics. The humans were becoming more than just soldiers or civilians. They were becoming a collective force, united by a single cause to defend their home. And it was this sense of shared purpose that set them apart from the Empire's army, which remained divided by rigid hierarchy and inflexible orders. The Empire's fleets had once been an unstoppable force of nature, but now they found themselves engaged in a battle of attrition. The human ships moved with speed and precision, striking in unexpected places, and then retreating into the void of space. Before the Empire's larger ships could even react, the humans used their knowledge of the terrain and their ability to think outside the box to their advantage, turning the vast expanse of space into a battlefield where the Empire's numbers meant nothing in the face of humanity's sheer will to survive. In the cities below, the humans had begun to launch coordinated counterattacks, using their growing network of resistance fighters to harass and sabotage the Empire's ground forces. Everywhere the invaders went, they encountered fierce opposition. The people of Earth fought not just with weapons, but with ingenuity. They used the very terrain they lived on to create traps and ambushes that took the Empire by surprise. Humanity's newfound abilities were proving to be a game-changer. Soldiers could move with superhuman speed. Soldiers with enhanced strength could tear through enemy ranks, while others with sharp intellects coordinated efforts to strike at the heart of the invaders' operations. The Empire's forces found themselves struggling not just against well-equipped armies, but against a species that had evolved into a living, breathing network of resistance. In the midst of this chaos, the humans had developed a new form of communication, one that allowed their forces to stay one step ahead of the Empire. No longer did they rely on outdated forms of command and control. Instead, they had tapped into their newfound mental abilities, creating a kind of psychic network that allowed them to communicate and strategize without the need for technology. This new form of coordination allowed the humans to synchronize their movements in a way that was impossible for the Empire to counter. Their forces moved as one. Their attacks flowed like water, each strike a seamless extension of the others. As the battles continued to unfold, it became clear that humanity's resistance was not just a flash of hope, but a growing storm that was beginning to turn the tide in their favor. The Empire's commanders were forced to take notice of the mounting losses their fleet was suffering. Their ground forces were being decimated by attacks from all sides, and no matter how many reinforcements they sent, they found themselves losing ground on a planet that had once been nothing more than a blip on their radar. Humanity's awakening had turned the entire galaxy upside down, and the Empire was beginning to understand just how dangerous they had made a grave mistake by underestimating Earth's inhabitants. The tipping point had arrived. The humans were no longer fighting for survival. They were fighting for victory, and the Empire had no idea how to handle a species that refused to be defeated. As the war between Earth and the Galactic Empire raged on, the once unyielding forces of the invaders began to show cracks. Their massive fleets had suffered devastating losses in space, while their ground forces found themselves increasingly surrounded and outmaneuvered by humanity's ever-adapting resistance. The tide had shifted, and with each passing day, the Empire's stranglehold on Earth weakened further. Humanity's newfound powers and unity had proven to be the Empire's undoing. They had underestimated a species capable of evolving faster than any enemy could predict, and now it was the Empire that was on the defensive. With the loss of several key battlefields and their hold on the planet slipping, the Empire's commanders were faced with an impossible decision. Should they continue the fight or retreat and regroup? The invaders had never been tested like this. Before, their battleships had been designed to crush entire civilizations with overwhelming force, but the humans had defied every expectation. Their resistance had not only held but pushed back the Empire's forces in ways that left the invaders scrambling for answers. The human fleet had become a constant thorn in their side, moving faster than they could track their ships, striking from unexpected angles, and retreating before they could be caught. It was a strategy that wore down the Empire's resolve and left their forces vulnerable. On Earth's surface, the Coalition's fighters pressed forward, retaking city after city from the Empire's control. As the human resistance swelled in numbers and strength, the Empire's forces found themselves spread thin, their supply lines stretched to the breaking point, while humanity used every available resource to launch attacks against their enemies' strongholds. Everywhere the Empire turned, they encountered fierce human resistance. It wasn't just soldiers fighting back, it was entire communities standing united. The people of Earth had become warriors in their own right, and every day the Empire found themselves facing more and more individuals with abilities they could not understand, let alone counter. In the midst of this chaos, the Coalition devised one final plan to end the invasion for good. With the Empire's fleet now fractured and their forces spread across the globe, humanity's leaders decided to launch a coordinated strike on the heart of the Empire's command structure. The humans knew that if they could cripple the invaders' leadership, they could scatter their forces and bring an end to the conflict once and for all. But this would be their greatest risk yet. A fleet of humanity's best ships assembled for the final assault on the Empire's flagship, a colossal vessel that had commanded the invasion effort from the beginning. It was heavily guarded, but the humans were no longer afraid. They had fought too hard and too long to let fear stop them now. As the human fleet gathered for their final strike, they felt an overwhelming sense of unity. The people of Earth were no longer fighting just for their survival. They were fighting for their future, and for the future of every life on their planet. They had proven that they could rise against the odds, and now it was time to deliver the final blow. The battle for the Empire's flagship began with a force of human ships charging toward the massive warship, their guns blazing with deadly precision. The Empire fought back with everything they had, but they could no longer keep up with the speed and unpredictability of the humans. Their defenses were overwhelmed, and as the human fleet tore through the Empire's final line of defense, they launched their final assault, a strike aimed at the heart of the Empire's leadership. The flagship's central command hub was destroyed in a series of explosive strikes, and with that, the invaders' control over Earth was shattered. As the dust settled and the remnants of the Empire's forces retreated from Earth, the humans stood victorious. They had faced an enemy far greater than themselves, and had emerged not only alive but triumphant. The Galactic Empire's once unchallenged dominance had been broken by a species they had believed to be weak and primitive. Humanity had proven that they were a force to be reckoned with, and with the final reckoning, the message was clear. Earth was no longer a world to be overlooked. They had not just survived the invasion, they had defeated the invaders, and the galaxy would forever remember the day when humanity stood against the stars and won.